In this video, I'm going to be adding $1,000 worth of liquidity into Terra Liquidity Alliance. And if we just look down at some of the pools that I'm in at the moment, I'm in these two, and the one I want to be adding to today is this PAXG wrapped Bitcoin pool, currently paying out 38% APR. So I can actually deposit directly on Liquidity Alliance using this Zap function. I've got USDC in my wallet. So if I'm going to add all of that in, and to actually see how much liquidity I'd end up with, I've got to hover over this section, and it shows that I'm going to be losing over 3% due to price impact. So that's not particularly appealing. Now, if I just have a quick look at Astroport, this is where I'm going to provide the liquidity before dropping it into Liquidity Alliance. And we can see that it's pretty much a 50-50 ratio, almost $500 of PAXG to slightly over 500 of the wrapped Bitcoin. So I'm not going to do the swaps on Terra. What I'm going to do is transfer my $1,000 over to Ethereum, swap on Uniswap, and we can see that $500 worth of USDC on Uniswap gets me pretty much $500 worth of PAXG. The fees I'm going to be paying here are gas fees in ETH, but hopefully for the swaps and for the transfers over to Terra, it's going to be well under the $30 that I'd be losing if I did the swaps directly on Terra itself. So I'm just going to zip through this, and the way I'm going to be sending the assets cross-chain is using this skip go site. So I'm going to be starting off sending $1,000 from Terra over to Ethereum. And there's already tutorials about how to use this skip go site, so I'm going to be zipping through this quickly. Personally, I don't use this site for cross-chain swaps so much more for just sending assets from one chain to another and then performing the swaps myself. I'm now just making some swaps on Uniswap, $500 into wrapped Bitcoin. And I'll swap the rest into PAXG. And now that these swaps have gone through, the next thing I want to do is send the assets from Ethereum over to Terra. So we'll do the wrapped Bitcoin first of all. And we can see this fee for sending back to Terra. But the sending fees and swap fees seem a lot less than the 3% I was going to be losing. 3% being about $30 that I was going to be losing for making the swaps on Terra. And that's really just a liquidity issue. So by bringing more PAXG and wrapped Bitcoin back to Terra, that's hopefully going to improve the swap rates over time, the more users and more liquidity that comes to Terra. And I'm just going to set up the next transfer. and this is to send the PAXG. It looks like the total costs for these cross-chain sends and swaps has been $3.52, so that's a lot less than the swap fees were going to be, or not swap fees, but that I would have lost by swapping on Terra. Even though I have to wait 20 minutes or so to send the assets back across, I think this, for me anyway, is a preferable way to do it. And I think it's actually better for the Terra ecosystem itself, rather than just ending up with loads of USDC bringing actually the productive assets from Ethereum over to Terra long term. I think is going to be of benefit to the ecosystem itself. Then the next thing for me to do will be to add the liquidity on Astroport and then deposit into Terra Liquidity Alliance. And at current APR, for $1,000 worth of liquidity, I'm going to be earning $1 a day in this pool. Well, $2 a day, because I've already got pretty much $1,000 here. Now that my assets have arrived on Terra, I can go back to Astroport to create the LP. So if I just use the maximum amount of PAXG, that is a little bit more Bitcoin than I actually own, so I'll use the maximum amount of wrapped Bitcoin, uses the appropriate amount of PAXG, and that is $9 under 500, and that is $2 under 500, so that's more LP than I would have had if I'd zapped in on Liquidity Alliance. So I want to make sure this remains unchecked. I'm not staking on Astroport. I just want to create the LP. And that's the transaction there. And then once I've created the LP, I can then go back to Liquidity Alliance. I'll just refresh. And if I now try to deposit, I should see that my LP is there. Excellent. So at the moment, I've got $973 worth of LP. So we'll see how much I have when I deposit this new amount. And I guess, okay, I'll leave this auto compounding on so we can see exactly how much I get. 988, so I'm losing 1%, slightly over 1% from my original $1,000. There was also the fees for the swaps on Ethereum and the transfers on Skip, which totaled to $3.52. So let's just deposit this. I also have a little bit of PAXG left in the wallet, so $3 there, that's nice. So this LP here is going to be auto compounding. The other one here kicks out the rewards every day. And as I was saying at the start, I like this LP because it's paying out roughly $1 per $1,000 LP that I have, and it's in two assets that I'm hopeful are going to appreciate over time, and that's why I'm using Terra Liquidity Alliance. If you've got any questions, comments or criticisms, please leave them down below. Thanks.